Fingerpaints and Crayons by Cheryl Costello-Forshey. With chalk in hand, she wrote her name across the board once bare, and she sat behind her desk without a single care. And for 15 minutes she did not make a sound, until the final student had finally settled down. Then she stood before them and told them all her name, and then politely asked each student to do the same. Then, without hesitation, she took papers from a stack and placed them in two piles, one white, the other black. And deliberately, quite slowly, with a mischievous smile, she began handing out the papers up and down each aisle. And once each student had a piece, she continued within their sight to gather two piles of crayons, one black and the other white. And then she took a painting from behind her walnut desk and placed the painting smack over top her navy dress. And to no one in particular, she spoke in peaceful tones. "I have been working on this painting for years in my own home." She stood staring at the painting, its brilliant colors mixed as one, upon the vast horizon, the presence of the sun. It is indeed not a Rembrandt, a Picasso, or Michelangelo, to say the least, but it none the less was beautiful, and its presence spoke of peace. And no doubt that lovely painting had taken so much time, for every color had known to man seemed to intertwine. And so it came with wonder what they witnessed with surprise, the act that took them all off guard, done right before their eyes. With finger paints now gathered and opened on her desk, she smeared the colors upon her hands in an entangled awfulness, and then, as though she had lost her mind, she smeared her hands across the painting once so beautiful, now a total loss. It did not make a bit of sense, and they did not understand. As they sat and watched, the teacher wiped the paints off her hands, and then she took the crayons and went up and down the rows and handed to each student the colors that she chose. "Now," she told the students, "I want you to create a picture filled with beauty, devoid of any hate." Mouths dropped open widely, and mumbles filled the room, and students looked to one another as unasked questions seemed to bloom. For the students with white paper were given crayons the same shade, and students with black crayons had been given a raven-colored page. And how could one create splendor with no colors to mix and match? The students were quite certain their teacher had left out most of the facts. "Teacher," a student's voice was heard, "I'm not so sure I can," staring at the white crayon and white paper in her hands. Silence overtook the room. It eerily crept about, causing the teacher's gentle voice to erupt into a shout. "You each share the same problem you each possess to resolve." But only the student with open mind will have the ability to solve. Minutes ticked away, the class was nearing to an end, and not a single student knew quite how to begin. And when the bell rang out and they hurried to their feet, the teacher told them commandingly to return back to their seats. "Before you leave this classroom, I think you each should know, for this assignment you receive a failing grade, for you have no work to show. And tomorrow and the next day your assignment shall be the same, and those who fail my class will have only themselves to blame." The next day and the following, the students weren't quite sure what to do, until at last a solution began to surface through, when one student with his white crayon and paper both in black turned to the student behind him and asked, "May I borrow that?" The student hesitated, but then gave up his crayon made of white, and ultimately the assignment no longer seemed a plight. For students all throughout the class switched crayons up and down the aisles, and certainly they had found the solution, their faces lit with smiles. And just as every student began to draw across an empty page, the teacher, whom they had all began to see as certainly quite strange, collected all the pages and crayons without a single mark, and then spoke aloud, "Thank you for bringing hope into my heart. You see, I wanted you to realize that in order to create a picture filled with beauty, devoid of any hate, you need to first recognize that a problem did exist, and that a practical solution could be found within your midst, and that racism is a problem each of us must face, working all as one before it is much too late. With open eyes and open hearts, we must see the person, not the color of their skin, and come to the understanding that racism has to end. For together we are a family. We cry tears, we feel pain, And though we may not look the part, that's exactly what we do, for crayons are just color. That's all our skin is, too. Students looked about the room, a variety of colors on their skin, as the point she was trying to make began to settle in. The looks upon their faces readily explained that they each were trying to contemplate that indeed they were the same. A nervous shuffling of papers and coughs throughout the room, portraying the vital image that fighting over crayons was a stupid thing to do. It was then each student realized the purpose of crayons and paper the same shade was to prove that they needed to either color, and to help each other with color, to help fill their empty page. Silence seized a moment, as one student raised his open hand and spoke in hesitation. "I just don't understand. Why do you take your painting, the one you seem to enjoy so very much, gather up your finger paints so as to destroy it in a touch?" Sadness filled her face, as a tear trailed upon her cheek, and in slow and heartfelt words she began to speak. "To show you each that colors can be beautiful, but they also can destroy. Everything we love and work for, everything we each enjoy. And the destruction of something that I loved was to make a point to you. That racism destroys the beauty in us all, and that fighting over colors is a destructive thing to do."